Hey there, welcome to No Recipe Required. Today we're going to do a Martha and Marley Spoon review. We got sheet pan pasta. It's kind of a, it looks like a take on like a pasta primavera, some broccoli, some tomatoes in there. Really easy to do. I think it's going to be really easy to do. We're going to find out. Hopefully it tastes good. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so we've got our my first Martha and Marley Spoon recipe here. This is a creamy sheet pan pasta, it's called. Basically, it's a penne pasta I got here with some vegetables in a nice little sauce with garlic, mascarpone. First thing we're going to do is prep ingredients. I've got some garlic to prep, some broccoli. The garlic, I like to cut the very end off the garlic, toss that. Then go ahead and take that core off, and you're going to end up with really the florets. And these guys I leave whole. It's got a super long stem. You're going to eat that, you don't want to eat that whole thing. A little long, so you cut that. I actually like the stems, even this guy. So I'm perfectly happy cutting that. If you don't love them, go ahead and toss it. And then florets like this that are, again, kind of too big, you can just cut them in half or whatever size you want. I like to keep them, like I said, not too small. So we can get our garlic, sorry, not our garlic, we're going to get our broccoli prepped. We're going to throw this into a bowl. Then we're also going to move on and do our garlic. Now, it says to use 1 clove of garlic. They sent the whole head over to me. Easiest way to break it apart is just kind of press down from the bottom. You'll break it, you get 1 clove of garlic like that. If they're small, go ahead, use 2. It's not really going to matter too much. Let me get rid of the paper on that. Easiest way to peel the garlic. There's a root end, there's a tip end. Take that root end off. That's garbage. Give the garlic a little whack, and then it should just kind of fall right out all over the place. There we go. There's the other piece that fell. Again, to chop, I like to give it a harder whack on the top. Flattens out, and then just give it a nice coarse chop. And there's our garlic clove. I might do one more off camera because I'm not shy about garlic in the pasta. I think that is fine. Little bowl, set that aside. And then we're going to do some tomatoes. Again, they sent more garlic than they need. We sent more tomatoes than we need. Ooh, I lost one. It says to use half of them. Frankly, I'd say if you want to use them all, if you're a tomato lover, go ahead, use them all. It asked me to cut them in half. I'm going to cut them in half the long way. I like more surface area. I'm not going to make you watch me cut all these tomatoes. I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting these guys, and then we'll come back, show you how to prep the rest of the ingredients. Okay, so I've got our tomatoes now sliced in half. Next thing, it asked me to pick the basil leaves. The basil doesn't look like the best basil I've ever seen. There's a few black spots on it. I'm sure it'll taste fine. And visually, once it's cooked down, it'll be just fine. But basil's frankly a pretty fragile herb. It can get a little bruised pretty easily, so we can deal with that. You throw the stem of the basil away. And here they gave me 2 little wedges or squares of Parmesan cheese here. And the final bit of prep is to grate this cheese. And toss that. I'm going to use the thin or the fine side of the grater, and we're just going to get both of these squares grated down. Then our prep's going to be done. We're going to come back and make our panko breadcrumbs, which are going to be used kind of as a topping for our pasta. Okay, so as I was prepping the ingredients, I put a pot of salted water on the stove, and that's coming up to a boil. As that comes up or finishes, we're going to do our breadcrumbs. They nice little package of panko breadcrumbs. Panko is the kind of the thick grain breadcrumbs, which are really nice to cook with. We throw those in a bowl. We throw half a cup. I'm going to interpret that to be half of the Parmesan cheese we grated, because we're going to use some later on. Into the bowl, we're going to do a pinch of salt. We're going to do a few grinds of fresh ground if you got it. Black pepper. Use the other stuff if you don't have it. And then add some olive oil. This is it's a good common trick. Add a couple tablespoons. Adding olive oil and cheese to breadcrumbs like this is a great way to create a topping for all kinds of food. Obviously, pasta like this is great. It's common on like mac and cheese as well. Once you get it in there, you just kind of want to make sure it's all mixed around. Those panko breadcrumbs are going to absorb the olive oil, and then when you get a little heat on them, the cheese is going to melt. The olive oil in the breadcrumbs is going to like fry and crisp up, and it will become a super delicious topping. Our breadcrumbs are done. Our water's boiling. Let's start cooking. Okay, so we got our boiling water here. It's fascinating, isn't it? Boiling water. Important to put some salt in there. Salt's going to kind of penetrate the food and give it added flavor. We're going to go in with the broccoli, and I love what we're doing here. A little blanch on the broccoli. We're only going to cook it for about 2 minutes. Soften it up. It just barely becomes tender. Then we're going to take this out in with a slotted spoon and then cook the pasta right in the broccoli water. Okay, so my broccoli has been going for about 2 minutes or so, not very long. And one of the things you probably want to do is just take a little knife here and you want to just press in. It should still be pretty firm, or at least I like it still pretty firm, not mushy. And this needs maybe another 30 seconds or so, but that's about it. Then we're going to drain this, we're going to put it into a colander. We're going to leave the water in there because we're going to cook our pasta in that water. I'm going to call this done now. You see, when you cook it this quickly, the broccoli still retains its beautiful green color. It doesn't go kind of that dull, army green. And another pro tip, go ahead and take this and just rinse cold water under it, and it will stay even greener. We'll shake our water out. So we got our broccoli cooked. We've got our penne pasta. I'm going to add that to the water. The water is now flavored with salt. It's also flavored with the broccoli itself, which will infuse a little bit with the penne pasta. I'm going to let it come to a boil, and again cook it just to where it's al dente. Probably going to be about 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, so our pasta is just barely al dente. I actually wouldn't serve it like this. It still needs a little bit more time, but we're not done cooking it. So we're taking it out a little bit early. Recipe asked me to, I'm going to try and do this without getting any pasta in there, which is not going to happen, so I'll fish the pasta out in a minute. To reserve some pasta water. So I got about a cup here. I'm just going to set that aside somewhere. We're going to add that back into our pasta. Then I'm going to add, I'm going to drain the pasta. All right, so we're back. Our pasta is drained. I've got it right over here. We're going to add the same pan back. One thing you got to be a little careful on with the same pan is the amount of salt in the water, because there's still salt residue all over there, and it could get, excuse my reach, could get a little bit salty. So, be mindful of adding any additional salt until you taste the dish, or give the pan a quick rinse. I think that can do you well. I just added the garlic into the pan. I'm just going to let that go for about 30 seconds or so over medium-low heat. Garlic can burn pretty quickly, so you definitely don't want to overdo it. You just want to barely kind of soften it. In fact, I'm going to let it go for another 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We'll call that 10 seconds. Garlic is now softened. You can kind of get the aroma coming up. We're going to add our pasta back in. The cup of pasta water, which again has salt in it, so we got to be really mindful of what we add in terms of salt. We're going to add the mascarpone cheese, which is this kind of wonderful pseudo cream cheese like. It's kind of a cross between maybe cream cheese and sour cream. I'm going to try and get in there, get all those corners out and add that in there. And the rest of our Parmesan cheese. This essentially makes, these two make our cream sauce along with that water that we added, the pasta water. And we're just going to let this kind of melt in. The heat that is on the pan and the heat that is in the pasta is going to melt all these down until the cheese is all melted, and this forms a nice little sauce in there. Alrighty, so my pasta and the cheese sauce is now melted in there. It's reduced down. It's perfectly fine to have it simmering a little bit, but I wouldn't have it furiously bubbling. The pasta, remember, we took out super early. It's continued to cook this whole time, and it's sucking up some of that sauce in there and creating great flavors. So what I'm going to do here is just grab one piece and give it a taste for seasoning, and that's great. I think it gives you a little pepper. I think it's got plenty of salt from the pasta water we put in there. And then what we're going to do, we're going to add our tomatoes in. We're going to add our kind of just barely cooked broccoli, and hopefully that brilliant green color is still showing up on camera. Add that in there. We're going to toss all of this to combine. I'm going to kill the heat or put it all the way down low. And that residual heat from the pan, from the pasta, is going to heat up the broccoli a little bit. It's going to start to soften those tomatoes. Once this is tossed, I'm just going to set this aside and then grab our sheet pan to lay this out on, and we're going to do a final bake on the pasta. Okay, so I put the broiler on while we were cooking the pasta, and that's on kind of full blast right now. I've got a sheet pan here. I'm going to throw some olive oil on, and I like a good healthy amount of olive oil. I don't think that's going to hurt anything and help prevent everything from sticking. I'm obviously using my fingers just to push it around. If you want to tip the pan or use a wipe or something, that's fine. I've also got some of that basil that we picked earlier. I just chopped up. We're going to toss that in the pasta at the very end here. Give that a quick toss. We're back on our sheet pan. I'm going to lay our pasta down in a nice thin layer, kind of all over the pan here. There we go. And then, this is actually shaping up. It's almost lasagna-like. Maybe not. But it's going to be nice, kind of baked on with, this is the breadcrumbs, the panko breadcrumbs that we did earlier. And frankly, I'm just going to use my hands because it's a better tool than the spoon. And we're going to spread these crumbs all over. Crumbs are going to crisp up, like I said. The Parmesan cheese in there is going to melt. And it's actually going to seal in a little bit, not seal in, but it's going to contain some of the moisture in that pasta as well and give it a nice, nice coating. Okay, so we've got that spread out. I'm going to take this, go into the broiler, and just get this top nice and brown. It's probably going to take about 7 or 8 minutes in a full-blown going broiler. All right. So here's our pasta now. Broiled, you got that nice crusty topping, cooked to a golden brown. Frankly, if you were to burn it, you could probably scrape off the burn bits and it would still be fantastic. I think we're good to go. Well, let's go ahead and plate this up. Alright, so we got our pasta right here. This is the basil. I threw half the basil into the pasta pan. I kept the other half in the jar. We're going to do a final garnish with the basil there. We're going to lift it up. If you can, you try and scoop from the bottom and keep that crust on the top. I think maybe 3 platefuls. Let's get a little bit more over here. We'll fill this out. Got some awesome pieces of broccoli in there. One more tomato. We will go ahead, try and brush our plate off a little bit. And that's how our sheet pan pasta looks and plates up. Let's go ahead and give it a taste. Very nice with that creamy sauce. A little fresh tomato there. And even the broccoli. Let's see. Broccoli is cooked very beautifully as well. So, gotta say, this is one of the easier, tastier dishes I've done. Good job, Martha and Marley Spoon. Go ahead, check it out, and I'll see you next time on No Recipe Required. Alright, so the sheet pan pasta from Martha and Marley Spoon. It was easy, it was tasty. You know, very classic ingredients here, the tomatoes and the broccoli, you know, kind of pasta primavera-like. The interesting twist, obviously, the panko on top gave it a nice little texture contrast that I'm giving a thumbs up to. Give it a try, let me know what you think, put a comment in the recipe. I'll throw a link to Martha and Marley Spoon in the description. Check out some of my other recipes, and don't forget to subscribe.